Get your copy of Fire. It's definitely a must-read. If you enjoy hood books, this one is it. Just like the title of the book, it's officially Fire. Get it on Amazon, paperback or Kindle.
The once goal-driven, ambitious Sapphire turns to the street life after the sudden death of her big brother Dre. Dre's best friend Devontae tries to honor his homeboy's last request of looking out for his baby sister. A rebellious Sapphire makes it very difficult for Devontae to carry out his promise.
Peace. This is the enemy's public, and I am Bro.Nasir. I hope everyone is enjoying this evening. It's been quite a day. Peace to my brother Big Dog Philly OG. Peace to my sister Sharon Walker. Peace to my good brother OTK. Thanks for joining me this evening. I appreciate you all. Before I do the regular scheduled, talk, I want to express my sincere condolences to the good brother Richard Neal Bay. I've never personally gotten acquainted with the brother Richard Neal Bay in person, but I've heard the brother speak. I've seen his demeanor, his decorum on platforms. The brother wanted to see his people better as a loving family of people who have respect for each other. This is one of the reasons why I related to him. I greeted him in the chat most of the time, ASA. That means Assalamu Alaikum, peace be unto you. He returned an even stronger greetings to me every time. Always. He's always had positive energy and showed love to everyone he encountered. I wish to express sincere condolences to the family of Brother Richard Neal Bay. May Allah bless him and keep him. May Allah be pleased with him. food, clothing, shelter, and us. Peace to my brother, Hurricane JW. Now, this work is stressful. You know, the work of trying to stand and act on behalf of our people. This work is stressful. If your mission is the liberation and salvation of our people, who can be the most ungrateful and uncooperative people on earth? It can and will affect our health. Some of us are not just the throw in a towel type. We give ourselves until it's nothing left, to the very end. When your love for your people is met with hate because some don't understand your approach, your methodology, it affects us to our very core, if we really care. I want to see my people win, other than sport and play, entertainment. This is why I always say, if I can't change the people around me, I change the people around me. Not that I want to change people as an individual personally. I want to see change in us as a collective. A change that will put us on top with no standout among us. No solo acts. We move as a team. It's how we're supposed to move. Now, you know it's good for everyone to have a voice, but it's not good for everyone to talk. Meaning, speak to our people. I know my first statement sounds sort of contradictory, yet after listening to some people talk, calling themselves enlightening our people, that statement is compounded and valid. In this age of mass information, in this age of technology, in this age of information technology, social media has given the voiceless a voice. Sometimes I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. After hearing some of the conversations and the manner in which they were conducted, some people should remain voiceless, because it's better to be thought of as a fool than to open our mouths and remove all doubt that we are fools based on the way we conduct ourselves in public and how we treat each other. I've done streams in the past about misuseful information. I've done streams about builds, asking what is a build. I know coming up, going to the parliaments, going to the show and prove, being in a cipher, brothers used to build and add on to a particular situation or subject. Changing a subject or not having the ability to add on was called noun cipher. Today, noun cipher is the order of the so-called builds. No order, no structure. Even an open topic should have structure. Without structure, without order, we have a bunch of chaos and mostly men babbling and behaving as cackling hens under the guise of building. Especially when we're tearing a brother or sister down to make ourselves appear smarter, turning every conversation into a debate. This is done on a massive scale. Don't get me wrong. Some of these brothers and sisters, for the most part, are brilliant and very informative. Yet their delivery is like throwing a fragile package on your porch. They just broke it. By how they delivered it, they broke it. I've seen people disrespect those who give them a voice on their platform. They're so used to doing it that they think it's their right to do it. Loudmouth bozos interrupting and disrupting a conversation that started off as a build. Being turned into a argumentative tirade. Peace to my brother, Cuban Vices. I look at us and I say to myself sometimes, we're looking very foolish among the rest of the society. I guess as long as people show up for it, there's a place for it. As long as people show up for it, I guess. And I've also heard the word tether being thrown around a lot recently. Applied to the wrong people, injected into the wrong conversation. Mostly when someone is referred to as a tether, is someone who is not a Black American, who comes here and undermine our efforts as a people and attempt to get in the way of our progress. That's what a tether is. Someone who undermine our efforts and attempt to get in the way of our progress. Someone who look like us. Yeah, what about the Negroes born and raised here who does the same foolishness? I can name a lot of people who were born and raised here in the United States who would be considered one of us, a foundational Black American, who are tethers to their very being, to the blood that run through their veins. All they want to do is get in the way of our progress. They do nothing but undermine the efforts of our people and attempt to get in the way of our progress. The same contrarian Negroes that I spoke about months ago. There's nothing wrong with discussing the problems in our society, our communities. There's nothing wrong with that. Most of these platforms are just scared and reluctant to have the discussions that directly affect us as a people. So they'll go to what entertains people. They'd rather argue about history. Again, turning the discussion into a debate. Intellectual mass debaters. I don't need another man or woman telling me who I am. I have a mother and a father. Grandparents on both sides, great-grandparents on both sides. And I knew who they were and who they are and where they're from. Wherever they was, that's who I am. Some of these brothers and sisters get fight angry. They get fight angry and disrespectful over a conversation that is really for entertainment purposes. What have we accomplished? I just want to know, what have we accomplished? Those whose motives is to disrupt have accomplished their goal, because we don't get to accomplish anything, but they accomplish their goals. If their goal is to disrupt the conversation and the build, they have accomplished their goal. Those whose goal is to undermine another panelist accomplish their goal also. But if your goal is to enlighten our people, attempt to push our people forward, do we really think that we have done that? Seriously, do we really think we have done that? I'm just asking. If some of our channels are for entertainment purposes only, that's cool. Yet we should be mindful of what we entertain, who we entertain, more importantly, what entertains us. Some of these brothers are very entertaining in a very juggling, red-nosed, clownish way. Those who participate in some of these debates, they're not even doing that correctly. What is a debate? A debate is a formal discussion on a particular topic in a public meeting in which opposing arguments are put forward. Opposing arguments are put forward. The main purpose for a debate is to show multiple sides of important issues, whether for informational purposes or for the purpose of leading to a decision, meaning that we should make a decision at the end of the debate. We should have, walk away with solutions. And I don't see the purpose of debating something that we'll never see again. I don't see the purpose of doing that. That's why I always ask, what's going on today? Today. If we can't use it, I don't see the reason to discuss it, to talk about nothing that's non-pertinent. Pertinent means you can use it. Non-pertinent means we can't use it. So why do we constantly have non-pertinent conversations with misuseful information, especially in this time? I'm not speaking about some election, because if a president do something for our people, it would be the first time they've done something for our people. So I could care less about Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. I could care less about either one of them. That's the mumps or the measles. And if they're put before you, you don't have to choose between the mumps or the measles. Now, 20 years ago, social media was an escape from the real world. Nowadays, the real world is an escape from social media. You got to consider that. We must consider that. When we come together as brothers and sisters, when we say peace, we have to mean peace. If we come in peace, we have to mean peace, and we have to maintain the peace. And it shouldn't take death to appreciate life. You know, flowers while you're living, that type of thing. Give flowers while we live. Show some respect to our brothers and our sisters when they're among us. I've met a lot of good brothers and sisters doing this. I've met a lot of good brothers and sisters out in the streets, talking to them and advocating for our people. Exactly, brown liquor, no ice. Food, clothing, and shelter. Us. Those are necessities. Peace is the absence of anxiety and grief. And that is one of the most beautiful things you can offer a person. Peace. And the best term of endearment that you can give a brother is the term brother that makes them family. It's the same when you say sister. It makes her family when you give these terms of endearment. Now, I'm going to have videos that I want to play. I have to find them. Have them handy. But I want to play them for the family. Bear with me. Now, we are in some perilous times. Again, we shouldn't let losing one of our friends, our loved ones, be the reason that we reflect. We should reflect regardless. You know, it's a good time to reflect, but we shouldn't take the time we have for granted. We should never take the time we have for granted. Because regardless of how old we are or how young we are, have more days behind you than in front of you, especially when you get a certain age. You have more days behind you than in front of you. So we should never take our time or the time we have with people for granted. Because you don't want to live with that regret that you didn't say what you should have said to someone. You don't want to live with that regret. Greetings to my sister, Sharice, the realist. Thanks for coming through. Looking for these videos. I don't want this stream to be, something somber. But I want to play this video from Middle Nation. And I found this individual. Someone sent this video to me. And again, what he says resonates. Are men and women equal?
The myths, No, of course not. Who told you they are? You don't believe they are. If it's something that you have to constantly ask about, constantly struggle to achieve and enforce, then it isn't a natural state, is it? If it was an obvious accepted fact, then it goes without saying, no argument is necessary. No one ever says, do you believe that men and women both have arms and legs? No one ever says, do you believe that both men and women breathe oxygen? But you ask, are they equal? Or do I think that they're equal? Do I believe that they're equal? Well, if you believe that they're equal, and you believe that their equality was a natural, undeniable reality, then you would be insulting my intelligence to ask that question. Just as you would be insulting my intelligence if you ask me, Shahid, do you believe that both men and women have arms and legs and breathe air? But you're not actually asking me if men and women are equal. You're asking if I believe that they're equal, which means that you're asking me if I believe in your concept of equality. Well, I don't. It's an incoherent concept. Of course, I don't believe that. Men and women are not equal. Men and men are not equal. Women and women are not equal. Individuals are not equal. How can collections of individuals be equal with collections of other individuals? That's illogical. It doesn't make any sense. Are you equal with your boss? If so, then why is he or she your boss instead of you? I'm not equal to another man who's stronger than me, who's smarter than me. I'm not equal to him in strength, and I'm not equal to him in intelligence. I'm not equal to a man who's richer than me in wealth. I'm not equal to a man who has a higher status in society than me. There are things that I can't understand no matter how hard I try, and there's other people who can understand those same things effortlessly. There may be things that I cannot understand, and a woman is able to understand it instantly. Or maybe there's something that I can do that a woman cannot do. So how are you going to extrapolate from those examples or those scenarios that therefore, because Shahid can do something that a woman can't, or a woman can do something that Shahid can't, therefore that means that this gender is superior to that gender or vice versa? Now, you created a concept that is inconsistent, does not align with human reality or human complexity. And you invented that concept because your culture has historically been abominable towards women. The West has never known what to do about women. You went back and forth for centuries trying to decide if women were goddesses or witches. tools of the devil, the cause of original sin. You used to wonder whether or not women even had souls. There's never been any people on the face of the earth so confused and twisted up about women as the West. And then you came up with a so-called solution, which was to create this even more confused concept of equality. And then you'll accuse the Muslim world, and in fact, the entire non-Western world, of being misogynistic and patriarchal, which is what you are. You would accuse the rest of the world for that, because the rest of the world never talked about equality the way that you do. But the reason we didn't talk about equality was because we were never as confused as you are, and have always historically been, about being humans.
Exactly. I strongly agree with that. Things can be fair, but never equal, because we all don't start out on the playing field the same time. And that's the absolute truth. And we don't start out on the playing field the same. That's the truth. Now, it's like certain things that I always say, listen to your woman. Listen to your woman. And then when the brother don't listen to his woman and he's sitting and he's in trouble with his head in his hand, I go back to him. Why didn't you listen to your woman? They have this intuition. They could come and tell you. They could come tell you when one of your boys ain't no damn good. Your wife can tell you that.
And then you try to force us to try to explain our beliefs to you according to your framework. To try to explain to you, for example, how Islam actually upholds the equality of the sexes in terms of both men and women having equal innate value, but they have different roles in society and so on. There's no reason why we need to do this. Why should we try to make our clarity align with your confusion? Why is it even necessary? Why do you find it necessary to believe in the fantasy of equality when we all know that some people are better than others?
Exactly.
We all know that some people are smarter than others. We all know that some people are more capable than others. And if that's the case, and it is the case, then subhanAllah, I hope that we're not all born equal, because that would be a severe indictment against anyone and everyone who fails in their life to become an astronaut or to become a brain.
That's like, participation trophies. Your team lost. No matter how the other team worked to become and achieve their greatness, to prevent the losers from whining, they have today what they call participation trophies. It's like fighting for the championship of the world and you get knocked out and both of you get belts. The guy who won don't feel like a damn winner because you both got belts. Makes no sense.
Brain surgeon or to become a brilliant writer or an artist. If we're all born equal, then how do you explain the infinite disparities between people's capacities? But then you're going to say that all women are equal with all men, when all men aren't equal with all men and all women aren't equal with all women. This is incoherent. What does it even mean? Every person, individual person, is tasked with what their God-given capacities are capable of, and no one is blamed or shamed or looked down upon for not being able to do what's beyond their capacity. And we're not judged on an equal basis, but we're judged according to our individual abilities, whether you're a man or a woman.
But Islam is quite patriarchal, isn't it? I mean, doesn't the Quran say that men have authority over women?
Well, don't they? I mean, men are the ones who have been oppressing you all this time, right? I mean, according to your own narrative,
Exactly.
men have been running the show. The feminists are asking for their so-called rights from who exactly? Look, if you didn't have what you call patriarchy, then what you would have is a hell on earth for women, because clearly women do not have the power to coerce men, to force men, to make men deal with them this way or that way. If you're out somewhere and a man starts to chat you up and you don't want to be chatted up, what do? You tell him, I have a boyfriend, I'm married, and he goes away. You have to conjure up an imaginary man to get him to back off, because 9 times out of 10, only a man can keep another man in check, because men are inherently more dangerous than women. Instead of patriarchy, replace that word with bodyguard. What makes more sense? For you to be my bodyguard or for me to be your bodyguard? Who do you think is more capable of protecting who? From who? If men didn't protect women, who would? Why, men would do whatever they wanted. And isn't your bodyguard responsible for you? Shouldn't you listen to him if he says, for example, don't go here, don't go there, or let's take this route instead of that route because it's safer? Isn't that authority? But he's doing it for you. Would you feel resentment about that authority? That's irrational. Look, you cannot dismiss the importance of physicality, human physicality.
Not only that, you cannot protect anyone who doesn't listen to you. You cannot protect her. If you're out somewhere and you say, let's go, because you smell the danger, you can sniff out the danger. Sometimes a female could do it too. But if he say, let's go, and you say you're not ready to go, you can't be protected because you don't listen.
Physicality. We're physical beings. Technology does not level the field the way you think it does. Let's say you have a business meeting and you have the meeting in a coffee shop. And while you're there, during the meeting, it gets late. It gets very late. And then the meeting is over. Your phone battery is dead. Coffee shop is closed. The client has left. And you came by Uber. Now you're alone in the dark with no way home. If it's me, I'll just walk home. If it's you, you would have been getting nervous and worried throughout the entire meeting, the later it got, worrying about how you're going to get home. You're not going to be worried about being assaulted by a gang of women. And if you were walking in the street by yourself late at night and you see a man coming towards you, which one of the two of you is more likely to be afraid? Who's going to be scared of who? But see, you in the West have confused this. The feminists have confused this. The red pillars have confused this power imbalance with superiority. We don't do that because we don't attach that kind of value to it. It just is what it is. The power imbalance, that literal physical power imbalance, that imbalance in the ability to coerce and exert force and to be violent, is just a fact and a reality of the power imbalance between men and women. But your culture is in love with power. It's in love with force. It's in love with violence. So to you, whoever has the greater capacity for violence, whoever has the greater capacity for being dangerous, then that person is better.
That is definitely the West. That's why they can go all over the world and assert their version of so-called democracy all over the world and deny us that democracy that they're trying to establish. Most of the time when they're trying to establish so-called democracy in these other nations, it's a puppet regime and it's a puppet so-called leader in that nation. And then, we look and see what they're doing here and they deny us what they're trying to establish abroad.
The one who can exert his will is better. Whoever has the power to force people to do something is better. And whoever is weaker is less. It's because you admire power so much and you admire force and you admire the ability to coerce that you find yourself resenting that men have authority over women, or the idea, the concept of men having authority over women, because you think it's unfair. You think that women are being deprived. But remove that authority and see how deprived you'll be. Remove that authority and you will be in danger. You will be deprived of your safety. You'll be deprived of your security, your freedom, and maybe your life. In the Muslim world, we're not confused about this. And we don't think in terms of better or higher value on this basis, except in terms of piety and righteousness, and what each person's role is, and what their duties are in society, in the family, all naturally proceeds from their abilities and capacities. I'm not equal to a woman who is more pious than me, but I may have authority over her, because authority does not mean the same thing as superiority. It's just a function. It's just a function that doesn't carry any particular implications about it with regards to value. But your society assigns a value to it that's inappropriate, that is not an obvious value to be assigned to it. You in the West, because you've largely become atheist, will make fun of Muslims, will make fun of our intelligence, because, as you say, we believe in fairy tales. You say we believe in a God without evidence. We have no evidence to prove the existence of God, but we believe in him. Meanwhile, you invent a concept, this concept of equality, and treat it as sacred, and you believe in it religiously, with religious devotion, and you demand that everyone believes in it, and no one can dare doubt the reality and the holy truth of the concept of equality, even though all evidence that you are exposed to on a daily basis disproves that concept. So you'll make fun of us and you'll look down on us and you'll insult our intelligence for believing in something that you say we don't have any proof for. Meanwhile, you're believing in something for which all of the proof that exists disproves it. You see how incoherent your thinking processes are?
Now, it's another video that I have to present that I found that's pertinent information, because we're in a time now that my sentiment is why they're allowing the immigrants to come to the U.S. is really to undermine us. It's to undermine us, and it's also they got them some new niggas. And that's exactly what it is. And especially what they do to undermine us. A lot of people are struggling, to keep their head above water and, suffice themselves with their livelihood. And for them to offer other people what they should be offering us, it's a slap in our face. And of course, it undermines us. And it's done on purpose. Now, this is the video that I was looking for. And it's also to when they undermine us, it's not really necessarily that the people who come here is undermining us. It's what the government do for these people when they arrive, allowing them to come here and then offering up all these tangibles and necessities that they need, as opposed to offering up to people who are already here, the citizens, the natives here in the United States. They offer that to other people. Of course, if we see that, it's not jealousy either. It's that, you know, we're taxpayers and we can't get what's afforded to us by paying taxes, because the money that's given to these immigrants come out of our pocket. And then we should be helping people who live here, who were born and raised here, as opposed to helping somebody who just came here. It shouldn't be that easily accessible to them to get these tangibles before we get it. It should not be.
Wait a minute, I think I'm having the idea now. Such ever-readied white generational barbaric outbursts against a simple people, captured, shipped off, enslaved, and then, even upon being emancipated, faced with the severest hate and segregation, could only undoubtedly have been the outcome of serious generational indoctrination, an indoctrination of hate, where even the cruel death or brutal murder of the hated is seen as victory or some grand accomplishment. And for what? What, of course, could be more irrational, dim, and barbaric in the world?
They came on the first day of January, and they did not stop burning and shooting and hanging and lynching until January the 7th.
June 1st, 1921 was the day Tulsa's Greenwood district, known as the Black Wall Street, was left in ashes. In a span of 24 hours, the wealthiest Black community in America was reduced to rubble. The Tulsa Massacre was a brutal reminder of the deadly consequences of racial hatred and economic.
Like when we talk nation building, we talk about land and nation building. If we're not adding security to that equation, something is wrong with our thinking. If we're not adding security to that equation, which is the reason why the United States spends so much money on military. They want to be able to bully people. They want to be able to go and take what they want. In most wars, it's not, I'm not going to even say most, all wars are money grabs because their contracts, everything cost. All wars are money grabs. So if we're talking nation building, we're talking about doing anything as a people, we better be talking about the rank and file. We better be talking about securing our lands when we talk about building a nation. If that's the last thing on your mind, it's gonna be grand opening, grand closing the same damn day. So we better start talking about security when it comes to, building anything as a people.
Economic envy. As the smoke cleared, the true extent of the devastation became clear. 35 city blocks destroyed, over 1,200 homes reduced to ash, and an estimated number of 300 lives lost.
What's the big deal about Tulsa? What makes Tulsa significant than any other city? Well, you've come to a place where not only a terrorist attack occurred, but that terrorist attack, there was no justice that followed that terrorist attack.
The survivors would pick up whatever piece was left of their lives forever changed by the trauma of that day, says Ruth Avery, a survivor of the Tulsa Massacre.
I never thought I'd see the day when my community would be destroyed. It was like the world was coming to an end.
The Tulsa Massacre was a tipping point in American history, exposing the dark underbelly of racism and oppression that continues to haunt us today. But Tulsa was not an isolated incident. From Rosewood to Elaine and so many other cities, the pattern of racial violence and destruction repeated itself. Tulsa was just the beginning. Across America, so many thriving Black cities and towns were targeted, destroyed, and erased from history. Their stories silenced, their their legacies lost until now. The destruction of black cities and towns was a result of systemic racism, white supremacy, and economic envy. There were quite a number of these towns then, over 50 black cities and towns, blooming with all kinds of development and amenities for the hardworking black Americans who were living in them and endeavoring all they can to keep their communities habitable. These communities were thriving independently with successful businesses, schools, and cultural institutions. But the success of these cities was seen as a threat to white dominance. Instead of emulating from the good.
Exactly what our brother talked about. We were thriving. Food, clothing, shelter. That's what we were doing. We were standing and acting on behalf of our people. We built that part of Tulsa was built so fast and so beautiful. It was economic envy. It wasn't no brother who sexually aggressed a white woman. No, they used any excuse to do what they did to that area in Tulsa because of economic envy. And the only time that military was used or bombs were used to be dropped on someone in the United States domestically, it was always dropped on us. Tulsa, Oklahoma, OC, Florida, you name, I mean, it's going to speak about these different areas, this video. And then more recently, 1985 in Philadelphia, move.
The good works they had noticed going on in these black towns, white Americans resorted to doing just what they're known to do best: destruction, chaos, and death. In those days, violence, intimidation, and forced displacement were the weapons used by white communities to maintain marginalization and racial control on blacks by every means. What it feels like to be black was nothing short of unearthly pain for our black ancestors in that era. However, before we go forward, kindly consider subscribing if you are yet to. Hit the thumb button in front of you and share with friends and families to keep spreading consciousness. Your support means a lot to us. Now let us dive into the events of this dark history of the thriving black cities that were destroyed by whites, starting with 1. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenwood District.
I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see black men being shot, black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot.
During an emotional testimony on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, Fletcher, who is now 107, recalls her memories of the two-day massacre that left hundreds of black people dead. In the early 1900s, Greenwood was a beacon of black excellence, with over 300 businesses, including banks, hotels, and newspapers. Tulsa, Oklahoma, was founded in 1882, and by the early 1900s, it had become a thriving oil town. Greenwood was a self-sufficient community with its own schools, hospitals, and newspapers. It was a place where black people could thrive, free from the racial tensions of the time. But as Tulsa grew, so did racial tensions. The white residents had become increasingly resentful of Greenwood's success, although segregation laws had enforced separation between black and white communities. Despite segregation laws, racial tensions remained high, and in one occasion of racial clashes, whites had unleashed their pent-up fury against the African-American community, revealing deep-seated animosity and hostility. It all started on May 31, 1921, when a 19-year-old shoeshiner named Dick Rowland entered a Drexel building, an office located at 319 South Main Street in Tulsa. He needed to use a public bathroom, but because he was a black, segregation laws restricted him from using facilities located at the down part of the building, so he had to use the bathroom at the top. Getting there required taking the elevators, and the 19-year-old shoeshiner stepped into the elevator. On getting there, he met 17-year-old Sarah Page, a white lady who was working as the elevator operator.
And just look at Sarah Page. Ridiculous.
The chance encounter between the two individuals sparked a chain of events that would change the city forever. According to Page, Roland grabbed at her arm and attempted to kiss her, prompting her to push him away.
Now look at this. This is ridiculous. I mean, she probably couldn't give it to the brother. Look at her. She looks like Tony Soprano with a damn wig on.
Away and flee the elevator in fear. But Roland's version of events told a different story.
Salute to my
He claimed to have simply tripped and stumbled into the elevator, denying any wrongdoing. As the news of the incident spread like wildfire, the white community seized upon Page's account, fueling racial tensions and outrage. The media sensationalized the story, portraying Roland as a criminal and Page as a victim.
And this was the reason, this is what they used as a reason to do all of what they did in the Greenwood section of Tulsa, the area that our people built up and was thriving. They arrested the brother, and a violent mob came and took him out of the jail. I mean, they were able to do that back then. They were able to go into the jail and take a prisoner out of the jail and do what they would with them. Most of the time, string the brother up. Sister too.
Some witnesses reported hearing Page scream and seeing Roland flee the scene, while others whispered that the encounter was consensual. The truth, however, remained elusive, lost in the chaos and destruction that followed. Knowing definitely well that the event might make him the target of an angry white mob, Roland fled to his mother's house in Greenwood for refuge. Unfortunately, the police located and arrested him. In no time, rumors that Roland will be lynched began spreading like wildfire.
And what was good about this is when they tried to go get the brother to lynch him, some brothers came to the jail. They wasn't having it. You're not about to do that to our brother. And that's how the fight started. The mob came to get him, but there was some brothers there too. It was like, nah, that's not going down. You're going to have to do whatever you do to him, you're going to have to do to us. And that should be our sentiment to this day. That's why I always talk about that nervous system that we should have among each other, feeling each other pain. If something happens to my brother, it happens to me. Something happens to my sister, it happens to me. And we act on it. If they knew emphatically that if they mess with one of us, that is going to be a problem. As cowardice as they are, we wouldn't have the problems that we have.
And by 7:30 p.m. on that same day, hundreds of residents were gathered outside the courthouse. At exactly 8:30 p.m., 3 men entered into the courthouse demanding that Roland be handed over to them. But McCullough, the newly elected local sheriff, sternly refused and sent the 3 men out. By 9:30 p.m., the crowd had swelled into thousands, and the sheriffs vastly outnumbered. It was about this time that a group of 50 to 60 armed black citizens arrived at the courthouse in order to support the sheriffs. And again, the sheriffs turned down their offer. Sadly, their arrival had prompted many of the white citizens to head home for their guns. At 10 p.m., a second group of black armed men arrived to support the sheriffs as well. But again, they were turned down. As they were leaving the courthouse, a white man approached one of the black armed men, calling him a racial slur, and at the same time, trying to take his gun, thereby sparking an altercation. In an instant, the situation escalated. A single gunshot pierced the air, and chaos erupted.
That is audacity, trying to take a man's gun. He would have got what was in that gun. That's what he would have got.
Panic and violence spread like wildfire, unleashing a maelstrom of gunfire, shouts, and screams. Both sides began to fire, and the small group of black citizens was outnumbered 20-1. As a reason, this group of black citizens were forced to retreat towards their neighborhood, Greenwood, in an attempt to escape the violence and find safety. Unluckily, the gunfight followed them the whole way, thereby leading to massive killings of innocent black citizens. Calling the incident a Negro uprising, the local police deputized over 500 men, many of whom were members of the lynched mob. These new deputies were instructed to arm themselves and shoot any black they met on the street. The violence spread throughout Tulsa's black neighborhood, Greenwood, with white mobs attacking homes, businesses, and churches. White pilots flew planes over.
They deputize the mob, making them officers, giving them the green light to shoot any one of us that they seen. And then they flew over, dropping bombs. This is why the Gap Band wrote the songs, "You Dropped the Bomb on Me," because Charlie Wilson and his brothers, they were from Tulsa. That's why they wrote that song, "You Dropped the Bomb on Me."
Overhead, dropping incendiary bombs and shooting at black residents. Greenwood was destroyed, with the entire city blocks reduced to ashes, leaving thousands of black residents homeless and displaced. Greenwood was left in ruins. The Oklahoma National Guard was deployed to restore order, but not before the devastation was complete. Over the next 24 hours, the mob destroyed 35 city blocks, burned over 1,200 homes. Although official reports at the time.
Again, this was all over economic envy. Our side of the town looked better than theirs. We had schools, banks, hospitals. We had, you name it, we had that in our side of the town, and they just couldn't. That's just their nature. They're envious, wicked ass people.
Time glossed over the carnage, claiming only 36 lives lost, 26 blacks, 10 whites. But the Red Cross, witnessing the devastation firsthand, estimated a staggering 300 fatalities. The NAACP, fighting for justice, believed the true number lay between 150 to 200. In the end, it didn't matter what really happened in that elevator. The damage was done. The seeds of hatred and violence that had been sown, and the city of Tulsa would never be the same again. The violence was not merely a reaction to the elevator incident, but a manifestation of long-held racial hatred and fear, fueled by systemic oppression and discrimination. The Tulsa race riot still remains one of the darkest chapters in American history. 2. Rosewood, Florida.
The town of Rosewood was a small, predominantly black community not too far from Gainesville. It was destroyed at the hands of an angry racist mob. All that's left, their descendants who continue to tell their stories.
It was almost like this picture perfect place.
On January 5th, 1923, a mob of over 200 white men attacked the black community in Rosewood, Florida, killing over 30 black women, men, and children, burning the town to the ground, and forcing all survivors to permanently flee Rosewood. This is what went down. On January 1st, 1923, in Sumner, Florida, a young married white woman named Fannie Taylor claimed she had been assaulted by Jesse Hunter, a black man who had escaped a prison chain gang. Though there was no evidence against Mr. Hunter, local white men launched a manhunt in Rosewood, a nearby town of about 200 black people. On January 2nd, a mob of white men kidnapped, tortured, and lynched Sam Carter, a black craftsman from Rosewood, on the suspicion that he had helped Jesse Hunter escape. White mobs would continue to terrorize Rosewood.
That wasn't under suspicion. They wanted to lynch anyone who they seen that looked like us. Being that they didn't find the accused, the first brother they ran into, of course they're going to say he's suspected of helping him. That's just their mindset. When they want to go out and they want to commit these nefarious acts, these crimes, any one of us would do. Any one of us would do. And these are the same people that they hire as police officers to this very damn day.
Would searching for Mr. Hunter, and black residents would arm themselves in defense. Late on the night of January 4th, a white posse fired into the home of black Rosewood resident Sylvester Carrier, whom they suspected of harboring Mr. Hunter, and killed an elderly woman. A gunfight between Carrier and the mob would last into the early morning, killing people on both sides. Outraged that black residents had fought back, the posse left the scene to regroup and returned with more men. On January 5th, a mob of between 200 to 300 white men attacked Rosewood, killing an estimated 30 to 40 black men, women, and children on site and burning the town to the ground. Most black residents would later flee into the woods, while others fled by train to Gainesville, Florida, never to return. Survivors later recounted that Fannie Taylor had made false accusations.
Gainesville, Florida. That's where my grandmother was born. Gainesville, Florida. My grandfather was born in Jacksonville.
Against Jesse Hunter to conceal her extramarital affair with a white man. Number 3, Washington.
Exactly. That's what they'll do. The extramarital affair, they'll blame somebody else and get that person killed no matter what happens, how terrible and horrific it become. They'll go to their grave with the lie, like the white woman did with Emmett Till. She went to her grave when they found out that when they got the evidence that she had lied, they harbored it and they covered it up to make sure that she died a free woman. I wouldn't care if she was on her deathbed. When they found out, when they got the evidence on her, they should have locked her ass up in a hospital, put some cuffs on her at least while she's intubated.
In D.C. In the sweltering summer of 1919, Washington, D.C. was a city on edge. The Great War had ended, but the fight for equality and justice.
Greetings, my sister, Black Panther Jackie Brown. Thanks for tapping in, sis.
Justice had only just begun. African-American soldiers, fresh from battling for democracy abroad, returned home to find themselves denied the same rights and respect they had fought for. Tension simmered, fueled by housing shortages, job competition, and the ever-present specter of racial prejudice. The city's streets were a powder keg, waiting for a spark to ignite the flames of violence. That spark came on July 20, 1919, when a white woman accused a black man of assault. White men.
Isn't that something? All of these stories of what happened when they used a reason to burn down what we built was always a white woman at the root of that shit.
Many in the armed forces responded to the rumored arrest of a black man for the rape of a white woman with 4 days of mob violence against black individuals and businesses. They rioted randomly, beating black people on the street and pulling others off streetcars for attacks. When the police refused to intervene, the black population fought back. The violence raged on for days. Sounds of gunfire, screams, and shattering glass filled the air as the city teetered on the brink of chaos. In the end, the riots left deep scars on the city and its people. The death toll mounted with at least 15 lives lost and over 150 injured, with property damage of over $100,000 to $200,000, approximately $1.5 million to $3 million in today's dollars. This left the streets littered with the remnants of shattered lives and broken dreams. Number 4, Colfax, Louisiana. On April 13, 1873, a white militia attacked the town of Colfax, Louisiana, killing an estimated 60 to 150 black residents. The violence was sparked by a disputed gubernatorial election, with white Democrats seeking to overthrow the newly elected Republican government. The militia, mostly ex-Confederates, targeted the town's black majority, who had been exercising their newfound voting rights. The attackers used cannons, guns, and fire to destroy.
That map that we displayed about the massacres, we had a map, myself and OG, we had a map that displayed all the massacres of our people throughout the United States. This video was basically going through that entire map.
Destroy the town, killing many black residents, including women and children. Some were shot while trying to surrender, while others were burned alive in their homes. Despite the fact that the Colfax decimation made national headlines at the time, the incident was quickly forgotten. In 1921, local officials erected a memorial to the 3 white militia members who died. The inscription on the memorial calls the white militia members heroes who died fighting for white supremacy. To a large extent, these actions show that they had complete disregard for the value of the black lives lost. The Colfax massacre was a brutal example
of course,
of racial terrorism aimed at suppressing black political power and maintaining white supremacy in Louisiana. The event marked the end of Reconstruction in the state and led to the rise of Jim Crow laws. Only 3 white men were ever charged, and none were convicted. Number 5, Thibodaux, Louisiana. The Thibodaux liquidation, a dark and pivotal event in American history, unfolded in the sleepy town of Thibodaux, Louisiana, in November 1887. This tragic incident was the culmination of a long, simmering labor dispute between African-American sugarcane workers and white planters, set against the backdrop of the post-Reconstruction era's racial tensions. In the late 19th century, Louisiana's sugar industry was booming, with Thibodaux at its epicenter. Thousands of African-American workers toiled in the fields, often under grueling conditions and for meager wages. As the Knights of Labor and the Louisiana Sugarcane League began organizing workers, demands for better pay, working conditions, and union recognition grew louder. On November 1st, 1887, approximately 10,000 workers went on strike, refusing to return to the fields until their demands were met. The strike's leaders, including prominent African-American activists, called for peaceful protest and negotiation. However, local white planters and law enforcement saw the strike as a threat to their power and profits. The situation escalated on November 2nd, when white vigilantes, including local law enforcement and sugar planters, attacked striking workers in their homes. Clashes erupted, and violence spread throughout Thibodaux. Over the next few days, white mobs rampaged through the town, killing an estimated number of 30 to 60 African Americans, although some reports put the death toll higher. The violence was brutal and indiscriminate, with workers, their families, and even bystanders targeted. Many were shot, beaten, or lynched, their bodies left in the streets or dumped in the bayou. Most homes were burnt. The local jail was filled with hundreds of African Americans, arrested and imprisoned without charges, forced to sign contracts agreeing to work for lower wages. Mary P. Terrell, a prominent African American activist, investigated the massacre and advocated for justice. She documented the atrocities and pushed for accountability, but her efforts were met with resistance and silence. Louisiana Governor Samuel Douglas McHenry failed to intervene, allowing the violence to escalate.
He looks like a surly and mean ass motherfucker who wouldn't do anything. I mean, it's like Yetta Vilified said, you know, they couldn't handle the competition, they couldn't handle the loss, they couldn't handle us thriving as a people, building our own cities up. And not only that, they want us to be dependent on them. That's why when we talk about divorcing the system and doing things on our own, it's so many examples of how we are able to do that. It's too many examples of how we are able to do that because we've done it before. And like I always say, when we start talking about doing things for ourselves, building our own, communities up and nation building, talking about getting land and community building, the first thing we need to start doing, we have to secure our borders. That's important. Security is important because when we thrive as a people, people get envious of us. They've always gotten envious of us when we thrive as a people. This is economic envy, all of it. But they always use that white woman to justify doing it. They always use that white woman.
His inaction emboldened the perpetrators and sent a chilling message that such brutality would be tolerated. In the aftermath, investigations were limited and inconclusive, with no convictions for the perpetrators. The Thibodaux annihilation remained largely unreported or distorted by contemporary accounts. Today, the Thibodaux massacre stands as one of the deadliest incidents of racial violence in U.S. history, a stark reminder of the brutal suppression of African-American labor activism during the Jim Crow era. The legacy of this tragedy continues to reverberate, a call to remember and confront the dark corners of America's past. Number 6, Wilmington, North Carolina. The Wilmington, North Carolina annihilation was a tale of politics, power, and racial hatred.
And that's exactly what it was, an annihilation. It was racial hatred. And again, they see us being self-sufficient, not relying on them. The way that our people can receive help from other people is to not hinder us. Leave us. If we are left alone, all of this can be done again, wherever our people are at. We just gotta stop being so inclusive. When somebody come to us and say, how can we help? Leave us alone. We got this. Just leave us alone and don't hinder us. We can build our own communities. This is all the proof in the world that we can do this.
Hatred that culminated in one of the most devastating incidents of racial violence in American history. It began with the rise of the Fusion Party, a coalition of Republicans and populists who sought to challenge the Democratic Party's stranglehold on North Carolina politics. In 1898, the Fusion Party swept the municipal elections in Wilmington, North Carolina's largest city, electing a biracial government. This victory was seen as a threat by the Democratic Party and the city's white elite, who feared the loss of their power and privilege. A campaign of intimidation and disinformation was launched, with Democratic leaders and newspapers whipping up racial tensions and spreading false rumors of African-American aggression.
The more things change, the more things stay the same, because that sounds exactly like October 15, 2024. They do the same damn thing today. The propaganda machine, the media, multi-ethnic destruction in America, do the same exact thing from back then. They do it today.
The situation escalated when a white newspaper editor, Josephus Daniels, published an inflammatory editorial that sparked outrage among African Americans. On November 10, 1898, a group of African American leaders attempted to respond to Daniels' editorial.
Just imagine, the very first movie that MGM made sparked a racial annihilation and violence against our people. Birth of a Nation sparked all of the same thing that we see on this video. What's crazy about that is they didn't even have black actors playing the so-called culprit, rapist, terrorist black man that they had on. They had white men in blackface playing us. That's the mockery of it all. That's the mockery of it all. They didn't even hire us to play the villains. They were in blackface. And then that's one of the spearheads that actually start the Ku Klux Klan.
But their meeting was disrupted by a white mob. The violence quickly spread, with white rioters attacking African American homes, businesses, and citizens. The Wilmington Light Infantry and the North Carolina Naval Reserves were called in, but instead of restoring order, they joined the white mobs, killing and driving out African American residents. Estimates suggest that between about 300 African Americans were killed and thousands more were forced to flee the city. The aftermath was just as shocking. The biracial government was overthrown, and many African American leaders were forced into exile. The Democratic Party reasserted its control, and the city's African American population was left to pick up the pieces. For all the violent moments in United States history, the mob's gruesome attack was unique. It was the only coup d'etat ever to take place on American soil. Lost in the fire that destroyed the daily record were the lives of Black citizens and the spirit of a thriving Black community, and also the most promising effort in the South to build racial solidarity. Number 7, St. Louis, Missouri. On July 3rd, 1917, Continuing violence raged in East St. Louis, Illinois, as white mobs attacked black residents and destroyed their homes and other properties. The primary outbreak of violence began on July 2nd, 1917, when white residents of East St. Louis and other nearby communities ambushed African-American workers as they left factories during a shift change. The National Guard was called in to suppress the violence, but they were ordered not to shoot at white rioters. Some troops reportedly joined the mobs targeting the black community. A quick throwback into the year 1916 and 1917. Thousands of blacks made a massive exodus from the rural South to East St. Louis in search of industrial work. White residents, along with the city's political leaders, attempted to discourage black migration and prohibited railroads from transporting black people to the region. When these attempts failed, white residents would begin using violence to intimidate, expel, and destroy the African-American population. From July 2nd through July 5th, 1917, estimates showed that as many as 200 African Americans were shot, hanged, beaten to death, and others burnt alive after being driven into burning buildings. The riots had caused more than $400,000 in property damage. More than half of East St. Louis's African American population fled the city. While 105 people were indicted on charges related to the riot, only 20 members of the white mob received prison sentences for their roles in perpetrating the extreme violence and killings. Number 8, Omaha, Nebraska. The Omaha race riot of 1919 was a devastating event that wiped out the city's thriving black neighborhood, known as the Near North.
Omaha, Nebraska. This is the city where Malcolm X was born. This is a city where his father was murdered when he was a little boy.
Side. The riot was sparked by a false accusation of assault against a black man, Will Brown, by a white woman, Agnes Williams. This incident was the catalyst for a long simmering cauldron of white racism and resentment towards the black community. For years, white Omahans had been resentful of the growing economic and social success of the black community.
Of course.
They saw the Near North Side as a thriving hub of black culture and entrepreneurship, with successful businesses, churches, and homes. This perceived success was a threat to the white status quo, fueling feelings of jealousy and anger. On September 28, 1919, a white mob, estimated to be around 4,000 strong, descended upon the Near North Side, determined to destroy the black community. They burned homes, businesses, and churches, leaving nothing but smoldering ruins in their wake. The mob attacked black residents, beating and shooting anyone who stood in their way. The riot lasted for 2 days, with the police and authorities doing little to stop the violence. When the dust settled, the Near North Side was in ruins. Over 1,000 black residents had been displaced, their homes and livelihoods destroyed. The once thriving neighborhood was now a desolate wasteland, a testament to the destructive power of white racism. The Omaha race riot was not just a random act of violence, it was a deliberate attempt to erase the black community from the city's landscape.
It's always deliberate. Always deliberate. They see us handling our business. They see us thriving. You see us, building our cities, our communities. And because, I'm not going to say that the brothers didn't, take guns and protect their livelihood and their families. They did, but they were outnumbered. And we have to start seeing things for what it is and how it is. They didn't think that this mob and the military and the police would get involved in the massacre. I don't know why they didn't think it, but they didn't. When we start talking about, I can't stress this enough, when we start talking about nation building and doing things for ourselves, we got to consider the mindset of certain people. We have to consider it. And we have to have an ounce of prevention, because it's worth a pound of cure.
It was a manifestation of the deep-seated racial prejudices that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. The riot was a stark reminder of the long history of white racism and violence against black people in America, a history that continues to have devastating consequences to this day. Number 9, Chicago, Illinois. The summer of 1919 was hot and tense in Chicago's South Side. Racial tensions had been building for months, with white and black residents competing for jobs, housing, and space. On July 27, 1919, a group of white men threw rocks at Eugene Williams, a 17-year-old black teenager, for accidentally crossing an unofficial segregation line at the 29th Street beach. Williams tried to swim.
As bad as a segregation line is, he got rocks thrown at him for crossing an unofficial segregation line when a segregation line shouldn't exist altogether. When people try to tell me that racism don't exist, or we're living in a post-racial society and things have changed, things have not changed. It's just that we're not in certain areas. We have our own areas. But if we went and we got some land and we did the same thing that our brothers and sisters did back then, it would bring the same envy out of these people. The same envy. Again, it's not if, it's when we do these type of things as far as build our communities. We have brothers with farms, you know, they got acres of land that have farms. We got to be mindful. It's your livelihood and you must protect it. And we must protect it, because if it's our brother's farm, we got to protect it.
Him away, but was struck again and drowned. The news of Williams' death spread quickly through the black community, and residents gathered at the beach demanding justice. However, instead of arresting the white men involved, a white police officer, Daniel Callahan, arrested a black man, James Crawford, who had tried to help Williams. This sparked outrage and anger among black residents who felt that the police were protecting the...
We cannot go to their brother asking them to do something about their behavior. That makes no sense. We cannot go to this wicked people's brother asking them to do something about their behavior. That makes absolutely no sense. If that's your son, handle your business on behalf of your son. That's it. You don't go to the police, because especially back then, you could barely go to the police today in 2024. Put your hands on mine. I'm not calling nobody.
The white attackers. Over the next few days, skirmishes broke out between white and black groups, with rock throwing and fistfights. The violence escalated, with white mobs attacking black residents and businesses. Black residents fought back, leading to clashes between the two groups. The Chicago Police Department struggled to contain the violence, with some officers joining in the attacks on black residents. As the violence spread, the Illinois National Guard was deployed to quell the rioting.
Same as it ever was. The white officers joined the mob. This is exactly what they do today. It's the same thing they do today, and they hire the same kind of people today. All they do is give them police powers.
However, their presence did little to stop the violence, and white mobs continued to attack black residents. Reports of lynching and shootings filled the newspapers, and the city teetered on the brink of chaos. It wasn't until July 31st, 1919, that the violence began to subside, with the National Guard maintaining a presence on the streets and a curfew in place. However, the damage had already been done. 38 people had been killed, 537 injured, and over 1,000 black people left homeless. The riot had destroyed over 100 black-owned businesses, leaving the community reeling. Number 10, Springfield, Illinois. On August 14, 1908, a white mob attacked Springfield, Illinois' black community, killing 6 to 12 people and injuring over 100. The violence began with a false accusation of rape against a black man, leading to a rampage of arson, beatings, and shootings. White rioters targeted black businesses and homes, destroying over 40 buildings. The mob's goal was to intimidate and suppress the city's growing black population, which had been experiencing economic and social advancements. The massacre was a brutal display of white supremacy, aimed at maintaining racial hierarchy and control in Springfield. Going forward, the gruesome liquidation of blacks in all 10 cities were brutal and devastating events that targeted just black communities, perpetuated by white supremacy and racial hatred. They resulted in the loss of countless lives, displacement, and destruction of property. These events were not isolated incidents, but rather part of a larger pattern of racial violence and terrorism that aimed to maintain white dominance and suppress black progress. The lack of accountability and justice for these atrocities is a painful reminder of the ongoing struggle for racial equality and justice in America. Remembering and learning from these dark chapters in history is crucial for building a more equitable future. That brings us to the end of yet another video at the moment. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the painful past of Black American families. We hope you found this episode informative and thought-provoking. Share your thoughts and opinions with us. Your feedback is valuable. Stay tuned for the second part of this video, where we'll continue the history of Black ghost towns. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.
Now I want to leave us with some words from our brother Richard Neal Bey. I'm going to leave us with this, some words of wisdom from, thank you, Sister Sharon Walker, from my brother Richard Neal Bey. Stop the blame game.
But we live. Check it out. We live. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I did not mean to do this, y'all, but it happened. I was setting it up after this workout, fat boy workout. Then I was going to go live, but it happened. Wow. So check it out. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. In the cut, in the raw. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Look, man, let's quit playing this name, blame, game stuff. That's what I want to share. I've been out working all day, and I just hear so many excuses, brothers and sisters. You know, I'm about to actually get out and do some grounding first, and I was going to cover my head and, you know, do all that old and get my downloads first, and then come back and share with my brothers and sisters. But look, quit the name, game, plan, situation. We are slaves because of this. We are slaves because we did not follow what our ancient forefathers set up for us, period. Okay? I don't care about what happened in 1642. I don't care about any of that. We did not follow what our ancient forefathers set up. We dropped the ball, according to our doctrine that's taught to us in the Moorish Science Temple of America. And when we drop the ball, consequences come with that. You didn't do what Big Mama and them said, consequences come with that. So today you have all these different brothers and sisters out here arguing and fighting. Stop it. Because my grandmama would have told me, boy, get your butt in here. What you arguing with them for? He say he Aboriginal and I'm a Moor from here. Or he say he a Hebrew and I'm a Moor from here. But we all talking about we from here. Boy, get in here. Whoop your butt. You see what I'm saying? Is this, am I making any sense or do I sound crazy? Grandma said, look at all this land you got. Look at all this land. I know my grandma is not the only one. On both sides are not the only ones who had land. Okay, let's quit playing. Let's quit playing, right? So my grandma used to teach us, boy, you see all this land you got around here? You ain't got to go play with nobody. Play with your cousins. Play with your brothers, your sisters. Play. That's all. That's it. Or play with yourself. So I'm saying this because America is beautiful, brothers and sisters. I have never left and went to Saudi Arabia. Praise Allah for Saudi Arabia. I know it's one of the requirements in Islam, but it's so much for me to do right here at home. Say that again. It's so much work to be done right here in the land of milk and honey, where you got other people who don't even stay here. No, I'm not going out right now. I'm not. I've been out all day. Right? We got people in China charging us for parking tickets in Chicago, charging us for parking tickets in New York. You hear what I'm saying with you? Do you hear what I'm saying? They not even here. That's our money. Aboriginals. That's our money. Indigenous ones. That's our money. Moors. That's our money. Hebrews. That's our money. The true American citizens. Wake up. We shouldn't be arguing over none of that. We all know we from here. And we know they owe us no damn reparations. They got to pay compound interest, Noble Drawley said. Okay? We're not settling for no reparations. Huh? All the heck and hell we have been through on our land? You want us to ask for reparations? Think about that. Compound interest. Get that in your head. That come from Noble Drawley. That come from Noble Drawley. So I want to share something since I'm on here. You could take it or you can leave it alone. And Noble Drawley shared this with us. And this is our doctrine in the Moorish Science Temple of America. Okay? You can take it or you can leave it alone. But I hear us arguing over so much on this internet. What's working for you? Not the internet stuff. See, some of you guys are calling yourself Indian or Moors, and you're not that in real life. That needs to stop. Weed in and weed out. We need to start. If you're Indian, you got paperwork. If you ain't got no paperwork, you ain't no Indian. Same thing go for Moors. Same thing go for Hebrews. The law must live. Quit playing. Weed in, weed out. Right? So Noble Drawley told us the first thing we need to worry about, how do we address each other? What shall we call one another? I'll call you true American. I don't want to be called no true American. That's what they called us. But if I call you a Moor, I don't want to be called a Moor. That's what they call us. But if you call yourself Indian, I call you Indian, you're okay with that. We set trip. So let's check it out a little bit. So often our various journalists find trouble in selecting the proper name for all of us, the so-called American Negro. For all of us, the so-called American Negro, right? But back in the 1920s, it was for the Moorish Americans, okay? Some say Negro. Another would still brand him race man. Still another would call him Afro-American. Doesn't this apply to you too, who call yourself Aboriginal, indigenous to this land? Our fight is your fight, brothers and sisters. Take the hate away. Your enemy is my enemy. So check it out. He says Afro-American, then come colored, dark American, coon, shine, the brethren, and your folks. You go to California, you hear them say, "What up, Kim folks?" It is indeed a hard matter to find something suitable for the various occasions where a title need to be used. Is it that these people have no proper name? Ask yourself that question. We don't have a proper name? Huh? Did they have a national name before these people got here to these shores? Huh? Or even before they got to these shores. Some come from other shores. They had a name.
I want to thank everyone who joined me this evening. I appreciate it beyond words. You know, I hope the information that was provided is pertinent to us in this time. Because my sentiment is, if we stay ready, we don't have to get ready. And our unity, as was taught by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, is more powerful than a nuclear bomb. And it's more powerful than anything that can come up against us, our unity. And we have to consider that. I want to thank you all for joining me again. Big Dog Philly OG, Sister Sharon Walker, Sister Black Panther, Jackie Brown, Yida Vilified, brother. Thanks for joining me, brother. Vilified, Drake House Music, Hurricane JW, Sister Sharice the Realist, Brother Brown Liquor No Ice, Brother Cuban Crisis. Thanks for tapping in. Good brother OTK. Thanks for tapping in. I appreciate it. Until next time, this is The Enemy's Public. I am your brother Nasir. Like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment in the comment section. Peace.
Get your copy of Fire. It's definitely a must-read. If you enjoy hood books, this one is it. Just like the title of the book, it's officially Fire. Get it on Amazon, paperback or Kindle.
The once goal-driven, ambitious Sapphire turns to the street life after the sudden death of her big brother Dre. Dre's best friend Devontae tries to honor his homeboy's last request of looking out for his baby sister. A rebellious Sapphire makes it very difficult for Devontae to carry out his promise.